I don't think I made the best first impression. I threw out my back on the trampoline, and then I got stung by a bee like, in the palm of my hand. I still have the scar for like the mark from it.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from across the entire spectrum of non-monogamy to hear their fascinating stories. We strive to bring guests on the show who have a healthy approach to non-monogamy. However, it's important to remember that everyone does it a little bit differently, and the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect our own.
Additionally, we produce this show for entertainment purposes only. Please be aware that we aren't doctors or therapists. Consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on the show. Enjoy!
Oh, I didn't see you started. Welcome to episode 103. We're Finn and Emma. And first off, Happy Hanukkah or Merry Christmas or whatever else you celebrate is great. Happy holidays.
Maybe you're listening to this a day late and you're celebrating Emma's birthday.
That's true.
The big 3-3. You know what that is?
What?
That's
a palindrome?
That's a palindrome.
Oh, no. So now I get to hear about it for a whole year?
I didn't think of that. That's really exciting.
Well, and then you get to turn 33.
Not for a while.
Uh-huh. A little bit. Not that long.
All
Anyway.
right. Today we got Claire and Phil. I think they stole their pseudomonyms from Modern Family, but I can't be sure.
Probably.
The good news is if you listen to the show, if you watch that show, if you watch Modern Family, you will know that intro that I picked was perfect.
For Phil.
For Phil. That's the most Phil sentence that you could have created without trying.
Yep. I agree.
Also, as a fellow person who gets accused of sounding like other TV people, I think he sounds a lot like Phil.
I think he does too. But there's nothing wrong with that.
I didn't say there was, clearly.
Yeah, because you get called Ross.
Thank you for clarifying.
You're welcome. Just in case anyone missed that.
All right. Well, anyway, it's an awesome conversation. They're great people. We actually met them in person while we were out in California a couple weeks ago and had a beer with them. Great people, and it's a great story. So enjoy it today. And what else do we have really quick?
Few announcements as usual.
Very short ones.
Yeah.
Real short.
Yeah.
If you just get to it.
Okay, if anyone's planning to go to a New Year's Eve party, you still have time to get tested for STIs. So we wanted to just quickly plug stdcheck.com. If you go and use the links on our webpage, you get $10 off.
And you support the show.
Yes.
That's all we'll say about that. Thank you for doing that in advance. Also, if you're looking for a fun, sexy, and educational, edutainment way to stay up on the holidays and you don't want to be listening to Normalizing Non-Monogamy on your Alexa over the whole house while the family's there.
Except they may be listening to this anyway.
They probably are. I mean, we encourage it, but you could also go check out our friends over at the Monogamish Marriage blog. Yes. You could sit in the corner and read while everybody else is celebrating. So we highly recommend that as an alternative.
I also think you should celebrate, but you could also read. They have a great blog.
They do. I was just saying, if you want to be an introvert and sit in the corner, you can do that. So check them out. They're great friends of the show and would appreciate you having a read.
Yeah.
What else?
I think that's pretty much it for right now.
It is. I guess it is. I guess nothing else.
No.
Happy birthday.
Thanks. A day early.
Well, or 364 days late.
That's true.
Happy 32nd birthday.
You can wish me happy birthday every day. Okay, I guess.
All right.
Anyway.
We'll work on that. We'll see everybody.
We'll work on that. What does that mean? Are you going to really wish me happy birthday every day?
Probably not.
Okay. Well, tomorrow you can because it's my actual birthday.
I will do it then.
Okay.
We'll see everybody in the outro.
Let's go hear Claire and Phil.
We've got TV royalty, Claire and Phil.
Claire and Phil. Yeah.
The Dunphys. I don't know if we're even allowed to say that.
I don't know. Copyright.
We'll pretend we're allowed to say that. So obviously, well, not obviously, but pseudonyms. But nonetheless, thank you for coming on the show tonight, taking some time out of your warm evening to chat with us. We're excited to have you both.
We're excited too. Thank you.
So for people who don't know you, who are the majority of the listeners here, Can you
the majority of the interviewers.
And us, yes. Can you give us a little background on who you are?
Me first? Okay. I'm Claire. I just turned 29 a couple days ago. And I'm a paralegal. And we've been married for 7 years. And we've been together for almost 10 years. So since we were really young, I think I was 19 and Phil was 20. So we've been together for a while. Yeah, that's what I do.
Awesome. Well, happy belated birthday.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I am Phil, and I'm 30, and then I'm in the military out here, which is what's kept us here in San Diego all these years, hopefully for much longer, but you never really know. And then, we've known each other since high school.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. We've known each other since I was like 14 and he was 15. I think I met him as a freshman in high school, and I had a massive crush on him. It was like, it was ridiculous. So I had a huge crush. He didn't know I existed. And eventually we started dating when I was like 19.
That's not necessarily true, though. He didn't know you existed, but
no, we were actually friends.
We were friends.
But I definitely had a massive crush. And then there was one year we went ice skating, and I remember he shoved a snowball in my mouth and then down my pants. And
true Dumb and Dumber style there, huh?
Yeah, it was.
It made sense in the moment when I was 15, probably not so much when I'm 30, but
15 years later, he's like, I can't believe I did that. I'm like, no, you did. It was a thing.
But it worked. It worked.
Yeah,
here you are.
It worked, and weirdly still had a crush on him. After
years later, she was mine.
Yeah.
Well played.
So we started dating, and then he moved away for college. We weren't dating at the time, and then we did start dating, and he was like, hey, you should apply for my college because I had to transfer. And I was like, I don't know. And I did it, and I got in, and I was like, hey, I kind of got in. And he was like, I guess you're moving out here. And I was like, I guess I am. And that was that.
The rest is history.
The rest is history.
That decision was made after we'd only been dating for maybe six months. So it was a big nerve-wracking decision that I was going to be, her whole family is in San Diego. So I'm solely like the only person she knows. So although we've been friends for a while, I was like, this is a pretty new relationship. I was pretty nervous that.
And he's the one who suggested it too. Like I wasn't even going to apply, but he's like, you should totally do this. And I was like, I guess I should. And then it happened. And I was like, hey, it happened.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't want to be the asshole if it didn't work out and now she's stuck out.
Right.
Yeah, stuck out there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like it's not like you're asking her to come next door, right? You're coming across the country.
Across the country.
Exactly.
Yeah. Did you start dating when you were apart then?
Yes.
Yeah.
We started.
So you hadn't even been together like in the same city.
Nope.
Correct.
That's
actually a funny story. So it was on Facebook back when Facebook first started in 2009. So not when Facebook first started, but pretty early on. And it was like you could send anonymous messages. So somebody just sent me one, and it was said that they liked me, and so I started talking to this anonymous person for a while. Yeah. And then I was trying to figure it out who it was, and I had it narrowed down to I think you and one other person.
No, he named about 5 other girls that he thought it was before he even landed on me. And it was me being like super like, okay, look, this is who, it's me. But he was like, it's this girl. I'm like, no, not her. This girl. It's definitely her.
Well,
no.
You make me sound like I was the worst in that situation. Like I was just wrong.
Yeah, I was going to say you could have just sent a real message. Just poked
But she then began to tell me how she had this crush on a person, and maybe my own narcissism, and is that I assumed she was just talking about me, just being very coy about it, and because she keeps telling me that he doesn't know that I like him. What should I do? And asking me for advice. I'm like, you should just tell him, expecting her to just finally come out and say it, that she likes me. And then one day I get a message. He's like, I told him. And then I got super deflated when I realized she was talking about somebody else.
That was bad.
This is quite the convoluted. I don't know how you two are even together between the snowball and the Facebook.
It was meant to be, and then I think I manned up after she told me. I realized it wasn't me, and I said, "Oh, I thought you were talking about me," and the rest is history after that. Slowly we
probably was like, "Oh yeah, you too."
Yeah, you too.
Because you really were asking him about somebody else.
I really was, yeah. I mean, like, I did always have a crush on him, but like I was totally asking him about somebody else. Yeah. So I mean, now we're together and it's a thing and we're married. It worked out in the end.
So something you divulged before we started recording, which is that Claire, you're an avid follower of the podcast, and Phil has no idea what we're even doing here.
That's not true. Yep. He said he's listened to a few episodes.
Well, I was going to say we're here to talk about your potential journey through non-monogamy. So I guess maybe how did that get started, or maybe what does it look like, and then maybe we can back up and talk about how it got started.
Okay, so I guess what it looks like now is very different from where it started. What it looks like now is dating separately, polyamory. That's mostly what we do now. It all started in college when I had the bright idea for a hall pass, and I thought it'd be a great idea.
I think it was a joint decision.
It was a joint decision. But I said, let's do a hall pass. And
like each one of you.
Yeah, but I think it was like for the other person. Like I was very adamant that she do it, and more so than like, let me go
and do it.
Like, I want a hall pass. I think you should have a hall pass.
Yeah. And so we decided to do that, and I used my hall pass. He did not.
I did not.
Because I was 19 at the time, and like looking back, I was like, oh my God, I was not mature enough for that at all.
Oh shoot. Oh. That's my smartwatch. Sorry.
So I used my hall pass. I felt so guilty about it. I was like, oh my God, I did it, because I lost my virginity to him. So I was just like, oh, I can't believe I did this. And I finally was like, to Phil, yeah, not to hall pass guy.
Just clarify.
That's a good thing to clarify. So I did that. I told him, and his reaction was like, "Oh, that's so hot," and which was shocking to me. But he found someone to do his hall pass with, and I was like, "No, I am not okay with this. I don't like this." Like I kind of turned into. I got really jealous.
Yeah.
So I kind of
that was my fault though. More than her jealousy, I think, is in that scenario. So we were both pretty young. Obviously she said she's inexperienced. I was not that much more experienced at that time. And I had only had relationships. And so our kind of agreement was, one night stand, meet somebody, do it, never talk to them again. I didn't necessarily I had never gone out and done that. So I was trying to figure out, like, I'm an outgoing person now, but I've usually have been more introverted. And like, how do I just approach somebody for that? I had no tools in my tool bag of how to do that. So I kind of ended up falling back on what I knew, which was something probably more emotional, like starting a relationship with that goal is like just so I could, but not just like meet somebody at a bar,
right?
Take them home.
So you were starting with it, like trying to go a little deeper with it than just a hall pass.
Which did break the rules, not for the sake that I had no intention of wanting a relationship. It was the only way I knew how to go about it.
Right.
So that was on me for not at least bringing that up, probably, and be like, hey, this is what I think I need to do to make this hall pass happen.
Yeah, and so were you two living in the same city at this point? Like had Claire moved out? Okay, so it wasn't this wasn't like part of like a long distance, like you're there, I'm here, we might as well kind of do this. It was
it was like we were
both in the
same
dorms.
College campus. We were in the dorms at that point, and so that's when I saw what he had been kind of doing to do that, and I kind of kind of lost my shit a little bit. And I was like,
that was rough for a while.
I was like, dude, you can't do this. So that kind of soured me on the idea, and I like pumped the brakes. We're like, okay, never doing this again. And later on, we had a friend come out and visit, and then
hold on, before we get to that part though, just to like sum up that part of this whole journey, it's probably foreshadowing, I think you came over right after
pretty much
you had hooked up with this guy that she just met online, and like it was super. I don't even think I understood how much I enjoyed that until like in the moment I realized like, oh, which is foreshadowing to like the future. It was a one-time thing at that point in our lives. We didn't really continue it, but looking back on it as we were kind of talking about getting ready for this interview, I was like, yeah, hindsight being 2020, that's probably pretty telling that we're more open than most people, that I really enjoyed. And we had like a great night when she came over afterwards.
Yeah. Like retelling what happened. Yeah.
So you can continue.
Yeah. So, I mean, a couple of years later, I had a friend come out and visit, and we were like setting her up with one of our friends. It didn't really work out. And we were joking, like I had promised her a great weekend with a hot guy and lots of sex, but that didn't happen with that one guy, but it happened with the three of us. So we had this threesome. And after that, it kind of opened the door again to like, that was exciting and that was fun. And how do we do this again? And again, it was like a solitary thing that like it happened. And then it was, I don't know, it was like a few years later that we kind of re-explored that. But yeah, it was like a one-time thing. And then we met these friends, a couple, and my friend she's super open, and we ended up like having parallel play. And I remember being like really excited about it. Like, this is really interesting. And how did this happen the way it happened? And last night was weird because we all ended up on the same bed doing all these really fun things. And it kind of happened. It happened a few times. And then finally one day she was like, what if we switched? And it was like, I'm okay with it. Are you okay with it? Yeah, I'm okay with it. Are you? Yeah. And it was like the four of us, like, we're all okay with it. And we had this conversation for a solid, like 4 or 5 hours. And it was like that 3 o'clock in the morning when we finally like,
I almost tapped out.
Yeah. It was like, he was over it at that point. He's like, dude, are we going to do this or not? It's 3 o'clock in the morning. We've been asking each other, are you okay, for the last 6 hours? Like, and it finally happened, 3 o'clock in the morning. We're all tired. And after that, it was
these were just like, regular friends, right? This was just a regular friend, right?
It was
like vanilla.
He was
friends.
my coworker, and so the four of us just clicked as friends for, and that's all for the longest time. We were just good friends.
Yeah.
And then luckily, his wife is very outgoing, and her and Claire hit it off. So that kind of helped the friendship, I think, kind of grow, and then. Yeah, it kind of went from there.
It got to that level. And then it was only with them for a really long time until we realized, like, oh, we actually really like this. But they were also kind of like, it was hit or miss if they did want to or didn't want to. And we didn't want to pressure. So that's kind of when we're like, how do we do this again without doing it with them? Because we don't want to pressure them. And that's when the Googling started happening. And like, we found SLS and Cassidy, and like, we're like, oh, it's a whole new world out there. Like, what is this? This is fun. It's a whole lifestyle. People are in this. This is a thing. And
so this was like maybe 4 years ago or so, I'm guessing.
Like 2-3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. It was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
2006.
No, 2017. So it was like 2 years ago. So we did that. And, yeah, we started finding other couples, and it was always good. It was fun and it was exciting, but we always kind of came back to those friends to the point where we started to realize, like, this is kind of a polyamorous relationship between the four of us. And we always preferred to be with them rather than just going out and meeting new people, even though we had fun doing that. It just made more sense, I think, to us because we're like, these are like our best friends. And there's this like really intense bond because not only were we like friends, like out in like the vanilla world, I guess you could say, but we also had this like deeper connection and this kind of secret because we had a lot of the same friends, but only the four of us knew what the four of us knew. And it made it deeper. And we kind of started to feel very much like, is this like a love kind of thing or like what's kind of going on? And yeah, we kind of, we explored that with them a little bit until it kind of just turned really bad really fast.
Yeah,
and
it exploded
really quickly and it didn't end very nicely.
Oh no.
So yeah. So that was kind of a hard pill to swallow when that all kind of blew up a little. But at that point it kind of turned into, she wasn't comfortable with me having a friendship with her husband. She was fine with every kind of facet of our 4-way relationship, except specifically the two of us. So I couldn't be friends with him, essentially. You can't talk to him, you can't text him, you can't all of these things, but she could do all of those things. And that's how we ended up dating separately, because I was like, I'm not getting what I want from this. Like, you guys have your alone time. Like, everyone had their alone time except for me and him. And I was like, okay, that's not really fair. And that's kind of what I want. Mm-hmm. So Phil was like, what if you just like got on Bumble and found like a single guy, and then you can have that friendship or that relationship or whatever you want. And I was like, that's a good idea. I'll do that. So I started seeing somebody a single guy from Bumble, and my friend's husband and like our little foursome there. What did he say? He's like, I felt like I got hit over the head.
He was jealous.
He was super jealous, and he got really upset about it. And then she got upset that he was jealous because she's like, why are you jealous? You can't have feelings. And that's how it kind of devolved the way it did. So that's how we started kind of dating separately. And I wasn't okay with him on Bumble yet. I was not okay with him being on Tinder.
Which was fine. It was not my intention. I've never felt like a quid pro quo kind of arrangement needed to be like in place. Mm-hmm. I was pretty, at the time, satisfied in getting kind of, I guess, my needs met, or what I was looking for outside of our marriage, if you want to put it that way, with her, with this other couple. So I was like, I don't have no desire to go out and date other people. That was never even our intention going in the beginning of it. It was always, we do this together, and that's that. Yeah. But we had tried so many times, a lot of these couples that we would meet, it was like hit or miss, or we just found that there was such a disparity on what was out there as far as what I think I was attracted to, what she was attracted to, and
it never
it's hard
really aligned nicely.
Yeah, it's four different people is extremely difficult to meld well, and we were lucky with this one couple, and I think we had like rose-colored glasses, just thought it would be that easy
all the time.
It's like, yeah, it's so simple. You guys, but it wasn't that as easy as we thought it would be, and we're both super busy. So I'm like, I can't divulge you or spend that much time like searching and doing all this stuff. So it was the simpler answer was, it doesn't bother me. So you go out,
go do it. Yeah.
Find what you're looking for. That's very simple. That's a one-on-one, or traditional, if you will.
Right. Well, and so Phil, were you able then to continue the relationship with the other woman? And because you kind of made it sound like that was good enough for you at the time to keep that going, and that was okay. So
the four of us were still pretty much nothing had changed at this point between us. The only thing was Claire was now on Bumble and looking for somebody, but we were all still swapping together. I think one night we did it just the way it worked out, because both of us have kids, that it would end up like she just came over one night and it was just the two of us. Like usually that never happened. It was always at least in the same house, if not the same, always the same room, I would say.
Yeah.
That was just kind of
and like
logistically it worked out that way. So that's the only way things were gonna happen, because of someone has to be in the house to watch children.
And so it kind of carried on where the four of you were still doing the foursome thing, so to speak, but Claire was also looking for something outside of that where she could have more than, she was allowed to text or have some type of connection other than just sexual.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the way I saw that whole thing going down was she liked to be the ringleader and very much wanted to be in control of every facet.
Not Claire, no. The other.
Yes, the other woman, not Claire. Claire just wanted to have fun and go with the flow. But so she had a tough time, but she wasn't communicating that. The way we understood it was she was down for anything, and like it was her husband. She was kind of putting her insecurities or her issues and saying they were her husband. So we all had kid gloves with him. Find out later that it was kind of her, wasn't comfortable enough to tell us that what we were doing was uncomfortable. She was like, yeah, I'm on board with all of this. It's him. And so
it was all the don't do's, like communicate honestly and communicate frequently. And there was no honesty in any of it, which we now see, like looking back, and there was no frequency in communication, and it obviously, like, it didn't work out well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, now it's like, it got to the point where like now we're no longer friends or speaking, which it sucks, but that's kind of like what it culminated in. And I mean, it worked out for us, I think, because, I found a great guy on Bumble, and weirdly it was like my first date. I've been in a lot, but like it was my first date, and he's kind of been the one that stuck. Yeah. Okay, no, I haven't. I've been in like 3. But that first guy that I first went on a date with, he kind of stuck, and I still see him like as much as I can. Usually, like we try once a week, and obviously he knows I'm married. I'm always so very honest, like right up front. I'm like, hey, I'm married. This is my situation. And he just understood. He's like, cool. And, super respectful. And once I was kind of comfortable and I saw how like, oh, this could kind of be easy, and you can find somebody that's respectful of, my relationship and my marriage and my family. So made me comfortable to say, Phil, you can get on Bumble and you can get on Tinder, whatever you want to get on, and kind of find that as well. Because at this point, our friends were no longer our friends, and we were kind of like, what now? What do we do now? We liked this lifestyle and we wanted to continue it, but we just kind of didn't know how. And so that's how we started dating separately. And that's worked out really well, I think. He found someone, and well, I will say, it took me a long time to be comfortable enough and to actually go out on a date after I got on Bumble. Phil over here got on, and the next day had 3 dates lined up in a week. And it was like,
yes and no. Like yes, I said, I used to be an introvert, and that's very much has changed over the last decade. And yeah, I thought it was going to be very difficult as a guy on like one of these dating apps. We got together long before those apps ever came around, so I've never even looked at them other than maybe over a single guy's like shoulder, like my friend's shoulder. So I was hesitant or skeptical of, is this even the right place as a married guy to find somebody? I assume they're all looking for relationships. That's not what I can provide. or potentially not the same facet or level of a relationship that they may be looking for.
Right. Well, so I was curious, what was your strategy then? Because I think there's probably a lot of guys out there listening going, how the hell did you pull that off? Right. Like day one, you had 3 people lined up. So I mean,
obviously pretty successful. I would consider, like, it's been 7 months that since I think it was like March or February that's when she gave me the green light, and I was like, all right. I try to be as open as I could be. So without saying it straight on my profile that I'm in an open marriage, I think I alluded to it. Most people have said when they go back and look at it, they're like, okay, I see what you did there. Just like looking for somebody open-minded, looking for something casual, not looking for anything serious. Like, without just saying, hey, I'm married in an open marriage. My thought process being that I'll talk to him for a bit, and if it's actually going to go somewhere, then I'll tell them. So I tried to get to that point as quick as possible, usually within the first couple messages. If it's something more than hi, hey, which,
right.
90% don't make it past the first couple messages. And then ended up being is on my clipboard as my standard go-to message that I had crafted.
It's a template.
My template of how do I break this, that I spent a while trying to say in a very succinct way. That was actually very well received. I think I've only had a couple that just stopped talking. Most have said thank you for being honest. Was the almost universal answer to that. And most have been pretty open to it. Some have said it's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something serious. I think a couple just never talked to me again. There was never any. I was like, all right, moving on.
That's been my experience too, where I tell them as soon within the first couple of messages, and for the most part, I get oh, thanks for letting me know. I appreciate your honesty. I think it's been harder for me in that realm, just because the reactions I get are either that, just, oh, thanks for telling me, I'm okay with that, or I'm not okay with that, but good luck. And then the opposite of cool. So when we having sex? And I'm like, no, that's not cool, man. And I will say, most of it is on the far off side, where I'm just like, oh, another one of these assholes. So I've gotten that a lot, but I think open honesty as soon as I can. And usually it's pretty well received.
Yeah, no, it's awesome to hear. And I mean, I guess for both of you, right, that it's been somewhat balanced, right? That it's not one of you going out on 200 dates and the other one's still trying to find that first one. Because we have heard of some people where the woman gets on and she's on there for an hour and has 100 messages, and the guy's been on there for a month and has 3, right? So it can be really imbalanced.
No, yeah, it can be imbalanced. And I think we've done a good job of kind of also vetting people and being wait, what are their intentions though? Because it's hit or miss, I think, but it's kind of worked out. It's worked out well. Like I said, I have that one single guy that I see as frequently as I can. And, which is nice, because it's kind of he doesn't know anybody in my life. So it's kind of an escape. It's kind of oh, he gets it, he understands. And recently, actually, it has stars aligned. I don't know what happened, but I was out on a business trip and I matched with somebody, and I just saw his picture and was oh, okay, he's good looking. And I swiped, and then I matched with him, and I was like, cool. And then I went back and looked at his profile, which I'm oh, I should have read his profile. And he was I'm married in an open relationship, into that whole ethically non-monogamous thing. And I was like, oh, wow, this is kind of perfect. Cool. So then we started talking, and then we went on a date, and it went really, really well. And I think maybe a week or 2 later, his wife was on Bumble, and Bill was on Bumble and happened to match with his wife. It was just oh, they matched. And I think she messaged him like, well, this is convenient. And we kind of went from there. And I will say him and I actually went on a first date and like had drinks and had a good night and everything. And
we did not have the same.
Yeah,
kind of first date.
Phil and his wife did not have the same. We ended up having a family time meeting at a trampoline park. So their first meet was like around like all the children.
Yeah.
And
I don't think I made the best first impression. I threw out my back on the trampoline, and then I got stung by a bee like, in the palm of my hand. I still have the scar for like the mark from it, because this is pretty recently.
Yeah,
like I got hurt the whole day, and I was like, well, she's probably not that interested in me.
Yeah. And then luckily, like a few days later, we got the opportunity where it was also perfect, because I kind of went over to their place to hang out with him, and then they actually got to go out on an actual date. And this last weekend, and the guy and I, we share a birthday too. So this last weekend, we got to go out and celebrate our birthdays together, all four of us, and it was really
fun.
Great and weird, because Phil and the other half, they're like the same person. So the entire night, it was like finishing each other's sentences, saying the same thing at the same time. And I was like, you guys, it's weird how similar you guys are. But it was really nice to see and kind of heartwarming, and like makes me giddy thinking about it. I'm like, this is actually nice, because it's what we wanted with our friends originally that didn't end up working and was really heartbreaking. And I'm like, oh, how did we find this again?
Right. It's like you found sort of the four-way connection, but
we weren't looking for it.
While you were looking for individual connections, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, we didn't plan on it. We just kind of made our peace with the fact that like, you're just going to have what you have with somebody else, and I'm just going to have what I have with somebody else. And it's just going to be a separate thing. And it is how it is, even though we really liked the four-way thing. And all of a sudden it just kind of landed in our laps, and we're like, how did this happen? This is really nice. Yeah.
Well, and so when you guys are looking for other people right now, are you sort of just open to whatever develops with them? Or is it, because you talked when you first started right back in college, it was like sex with no feelings, that's the rule, right? And has it evolved to now where you're like, yeah, so if somebody develops feelings or falls in love, that's okay, but it's, I guess, are there still rules or boundaries around that?
So I think we started like most people do, which I've noticed I hear a lot, is like, we had all the rules in the world. Right. And then as like the longer you're in it, it's just like kind of rules just die away, and like, that's not a rule anymore. And I think that's kind of where we're at, where I don't know. I'm not insecure with, if like he has feelings for somebody. And at first I was like, oh my God, what if he has feelings for somebody else? But I think we're so comfortable and like confident and secure in our relationship that, and we realize like feelings happen, like they're going to happen, when you're so close to somebody, you're going to have those feelings. And I don't know, like I did have an experience recently where I was terrified to tell Phil about it, because that guy I was dating just out of the blue was like, I love you. And my response to him was, really? Like, I didn't know what to say. I was like, really? And I came home and I was like, by the way, he said he loved me, and I don't know if that's okay. And
I think my response was like, well, how do you feel?
How do you feel? And I just said, really? Like, I don't know. So that kind of made me realize like, oh, but that's okay though. Like and he even told me, he's like, just because I said that to you, or if you do feel the same for me, doesn't mean you feel any less for anybody else. Right. And it's like, yeah, that's true. I don't feel any less for anybody else. It's not taking away my love for Phil,
right.
Well,
so.
And I guess as long as you've communicated that, right, on the out front, that like what you were looking for, right? If you're saying, I guess maybe to be a little more clear, to be more clear about that is like, right, you didn't go into this saying, oh yeah, I'm looking for a long-term boyfriend and I want to fall in love. And then he's like, I'm falling in love with you. You're like, oh, nope, not me. I'm not really looking for that, right? You didn't set somebody up to break their heart, right? It was sort of, you may or may not be there, but in it's okay that he is and you aren't, right? You've communicated all that and it's all above board.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how, like, I think that's how it's been lately, where we're kind of okay with it. I realize that I am more comfortable with like this new couple because I feel like I can trust them because they're in the same situation. They have the same, dynamic. So I'm like, okay, I can trust your intentions. Yeah. I was not as forthcoming with one of the single girls that he was dating.
I was going to bring that up. I was like, as much as we are pretty okay with things, I was like, I think from her end, it's on more of an individual basis. I've noticed where some women, not arbitrarily, but some women, she was like, no, I'm not comfortable with that. And then as I see it, and somebody else, she's like, oh yeah, take it as far as you want with them.
Yeah. I guess I can kind of understand that too. Like it depends on your comfort level.
Yeah.
Like people are different and the way they treat both of you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think it was funny because the girl that Claire's referencing was also like the first person that I met, or one of the first couple that I met really early on when we kind of started doing our own separate thing. Whereas, which I don't think she mentioned, like he left his previous relationship because he wanted an open relationship, and so like he kind of understood where Claire was coming from. This
is the single guy you're dating.
Yeah. So like he completely got it and was super on board. And he's like, yeah, that's what I've always wanted too. So that was an easy match. Mine was a more traditional, like she was like, I don't know how I feel about that. I'll work. And so it built very slowly. I was like, well, we can just be friends and chat. You seem a very nice person. We met, everything was going like progressing well. And at first she's like, I'm uncomfortable. Looking back, I was like, yeah, those are flags. She wanted to pretend, I think, that I was a single dad. She wasn't very comfortable talking about my wife or like me mentioning her. And at first I was like, I guess that kind of makes sense. She like, when I'm with you kind of thing. And, but the longer it kind of went on, I think I was becoming less and less comfortable with having to like hide my marriage, which I was like, this is not what I was.
Kind of wanted to pretend that I didn't exist entirely. So
I can see how that might make you uncomfortable.
Yeah. So she would ask questions about like my son, and she had no, I think, illusions of what this relationship is. She fully knew that I was married and had no desire wasn't trying to come in and wreck the home, so to speak. But I think she just wanted to pretend or not talk about it. Like she never wanted to come over to the house. I would always go to her place, which is fine. That's, it's easy for me to go there and then I can leave. But
it sounds like it really goes against the vibe, I guess, that you are trying to create, which is this sort of free flowing, like people should be able to come over and be a part of your family if it makes sense, right? I mean, I guess I'm curious, the other guy that Claire knows, have you met him, Phil? Like, are you?
No, I haven't. I've never met him. We had talked about it pretty early on in their relationship. Like, would you ever meet him? And
I think they're both getting to a place where like they both kind of go back. The both of them go back and forth. Like 1 minute they're like, yeah, I could totally meet him. And then the other like, I don't know if I'm okay with meeting him, but they're open to it, just not yet. Yeah, it depends. I think they go back and forth. Like there are times when he's like, yes. And then there's other times when Phil's like, no. Yeah. And then the same with, the single guy I'm seeing where he's like, totally, I'll go up and meet him. And then there are times I say, I don't know if I'm okay. And I'm like, you know what, you guys just tell me when you're good, and then you can meet if you want.
And I think it's just in my head, it's like the context of how we meet, which I know if we actually would meet, or we would meet any of each other's kind of partners outside of our marriage. Like, it's just going to be as friends. Like, in my head, the thing I don't want to meet, as okay with everything that I think I am, is like some sort of alpha dogging scenario where he feels he's going to come in and like be all over my wife, like right in front of me, which like she's not into any guy that would do that. So I know that that's not actually going to happen. He seems like a really nice guy, and we'd probably just hang out and become best friends.
Yeah.
No, they'd push me out. I know it. Like
I'm currently getting pushed out.
That is true. Recently, one of the girls he's dating, which is like the polar opposite of the one that wanted to pretend I didn't exist, she started to question whether he was telling the truth about this open relationship, and
not so much question as much as just ask,
make sure I was okay with it. So she reached out to me, wanted to make sure I was fine, and I told her, yeah, I'm totally fine with this. Like, thank you for reaching out. I appreciate that. And then she invited me out to have a beer. So I met up with her, just the two of us, and we were supposed to have one beer at around 7.
Yeah.
And
these were out all night.
I didn't come home till like 1:00 in the morning. Like, I just had a blast with her. Like, went back to her place, hung out, talked all night, and we've hung out since then, like multiple times. She's introduced me to her friends, and I'm like, this is the kind of thing I want. I like this.
Yeah.
I like having,
it's comfortable.
It's comfortable, and I like having a friend to kind of share like this experience with, rather than be like, oh, like you don't exist in this world with me right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of what I like. And that's what I like about this new situation with this other couple, is like, oh, we're kind of so open with each other, and it's all working on all facets. I'm like, how is this working right now? This is great. This is what I wanted from the beginning. Amazing. Yeah. And that's fairly new too. I mean, this is only like 3 or 4 weeks ago that we met him.
Yeah. There's a lot changing right now, and exciting.
Yeah.
No, it's so like much. Yeah.
We get into like periods of like a lull, and then things aggressively change throughout this whole thing. I can't think of probably more than like a 2 or 3 month period where things were the same as they were, 3 months ago.
Yeah.
It hasn't been that long since we've become non-monogamous or opened up our marriage to things other than just the two of us.
Mm-hmm.
And like looking at how that over time has quickly evolved into what looks like nothing now, looks nothing like what it was what we agreed upon and talked about when it started.
Have you noticed like changes in your relationship, like benefits that you've seen since you started kind of going into it a little more? I don't want to say full time, like it's a job, but like since you really started exploring it more seriously after sort of you worked through the issues with the first couple, but once you kind of got on the right track, like have you seen your relationship changing?
I think so. I think we just are better at communicating than we ever were. Like, not that we were bad before, that it was bad. It's just, I think, being comfortable to talk about pretty much anything now is very easy, because we've had some very awkward conversations. So almost anything with normal life is a very easy conversation to have. And I think with that couple, that seeing how poor their interrelationship communication was with that first couple, like just solidifies like we are doing everything right. Like Claire and I are lockstep on how we talk about it most nights. Like, what is going on? Like, what should we be doing? Do we pump the brakes? And we will do that. And we talk about it every facet. And it was just became very clear, especially in hindsight, that they were not doing that same thing. And that we've continued that throughout, even with when we've kind of gone our separate ways to doing our kind of solo thing, is we still at the end of the night, in the beginning, very much so, right at the end of the night, as soon as they came back, sometimes now it's the next morning because of work. Or the next
night after work or something, or like, oh, tell me about
we always, talk about what all happened, especially when it's a first, like meeting somebody else for the first time. When it's somebody like that she's been seeing for a bunch, then I'm like, all right, she went to hang out with a friend with one of these guys. It's not as critical for me to like stay up and wait, make sure she's okay. I was like, this is somebody we can trust.
Yeah. Well, I was curious then on that, like, since you mentioned it, like, how have you handled, like, the physical safety around, like, either of you going out and meeting other people, right? Like, that can be a little bit scary, right? Thinking, like, okay, well, my wife or my husband is out with somebody, who knows if they got tricked into something or if it was, right? So how have you handled that?
We have a proof of life texts that we do on on first dates. Usually, you know, like
every hour.
So like, hey, I'm alive. Hey, I'm okay. Hey, I'm good. Initially, what I started doing, just because he kind of was like, I don't know if I want to know, you know, where you are, like where this guy lives or whatever. So I have my best friend. I would send her like my address, his name, where I'm going to be, what time I'm going to be there, let her know, like, and she would tell me, okay, text me every hour, make sure you're okay. And I still kind of do that with her, where I haven't been going on, you know, new dates or anything, but with every new or like first date, I just text her, hey, I'm meeting this guy at this place at this time. This is his name. And she's like, cool, thank you. I'm going to check up on you. And if you don't text me, you know, by this time, I'm calling the cops. And I'm like, great. You know, you have my back.
You have that backup.
Yeah.
I have the benefit of being 6'2" and 200 pounds. So I'm not necessarily the most worried at all about my physical safety.
Sure.
No,
but meeting somewhere, you know, a bar, somewhere
public.
not. I've never
somewhere public and
I am not bold enough to even ask somebody to come, like, hey, do you just want to come to my house or come to my place, or can I come over to your place? Like, that's not who I am. I'm not that bold and forward. Yeah. So that's not even entered my mind. Like, this chat is going very well. Let's skip meeting in public and let's just get straight down. Yeah. And that's not, I was like, not an option for me.
Yeah. And how about your sexual safety?
Hold on. I wanted to touch on something there, because I'm curious that you said that Phil doesn't want to know, like, the physical location, which is kind of strange. Yeah. I'm curious about that.
So that was the very first time. And it wasn't that I didn't want to know her physical location, as when we were kind of navigating those waters of the very first time she went out with somebody else. We talked about, like, what do you want to know? What don't you want to know? Like, do you want to know his name? I was like, I don't need to know anything about him. I was very on board with it. I was trying to figure out what I was and wasn't comfortable with. I'm like, but we ended up talking about afterwards. What we didn't discuss was the location. Like, I told her, like, I would have liked to have known an address, and ended up, like, feverishly trying to get it out of her friend, which
didn't go well because she didn't want to give it to me, and her and I had a discussion about that. It was for the other couple. Like, I was at their house, the other couple that trying to get their mind off it.
Yeah, I spent the night with them, just hanging out, so I wouldn't just be sitting at home drinking whiskey, like shaking. Like, I was excited but very nervous. You know, so that was like that was something obviously new for me. But when she ended up being in a place of bad reception, and so I stopped getting texts. So I'm trying to figure out, like, is she okay? We had a rule of nothing physical on this first date, just because I was like, just in case, maybe this isn't something I'm okay with you going out with somebody else. So let's just meet. You can meet him, and then, like, no sex, and then we'll talk about it. And then, you know, after that first meet, it was kind of, whatever you're comfortable with, I'm comfortable with. It was okay after that. Like, once we knew, but I didn't know before. And
we had that backup of, like, I actually had two friends that knew exactly where I was, who I was with, like, first name, last name, like, and I always have my best friend that I like tell everything to. So, like, she always knows, like, where I'm at, what I'm doing, like, that I'm alive and well.
And now that quickly changed once we kind of hammered out that maybe we misunderstood each other, and that I was like, no, I would like to know where you are, what restaurant, like, everything, because God forbid I need to come get you, like,
that's true.
or something even worse happens, and I would like to know.
That's changed. And now, like, I mean, I actually recently deleted all of my dating apps because since we're in a town, like we're in our hometown, an old classmate of mine found one of my dating apps, like one of my profiles. And she went about it really, really badly. This actually happened 2 days ago. She sent me a screenshot of my profile and just that. And I was like, hey, Phil and I are in a open relationship. We're, non-monogamous. Like, that's kind of our deal. Like, we'd appreciate it if you would be discreet about it and not tell anybody. And her response was that's a relief, especially since I sent that screenshot to both of you. So we'll see. So she didn't believe me.
Yeah, it was a little.
I think she was trying to catch me in something, and she sent it to Phil, and she sent him the whole screenshot of our conversation, me telling her, and he was like, hey, you went to our wedding. You know her better than that. Obviously what she's saying is true. And she said the same thing. Oh, that's a relief. It's happened to me before. And I'm glad that what she said was true for both of your sake or something like that. And I was like, she was just.
Yeah, I think she was hoping for drama.
Yeah.
This is a person.
She was looking
for something.
This is a person that, I think maybe I said hi to probably said hi to at our wedding, but is not somebody that I know. And Claire had told me, like, she hasn't spoken to this person in years.
Oh, it's been
because
like
she
4 or 5 years.
She had dated her friend. So once they broke up,
it was over. But she got wind of this and she was just, and after that, I just got really anxious about it. And I deleted everything. I was like, I don't even want to deal right now.
It was like the way she went about it was very shady.
It was like I got you.
We had we had a very different experience of somebody finding out. And that was my best friends. Both of my best friends independently found Claire on Tinder. And I laughed because, like, they both at separate times pretty much said the same thing. But so I get a random text in the middle of the day, like, hey man, I don't know how to tell you this, but I think you should know. And it was out of a place of concern. And like, he sent me like the screenshot and I'm just laughing. I was like, dude, it's not what you think. She's not cheating. And then I explained the situation. I hadn't told him yet because we're all busy and in different parts of the country. And we were about to have like a guys trip. And so I wanted to do it face to face and let them know, because this is now a big part of our lives, and tell them about it. But I was like, all right, I can't have you thinking my wife is, having an affair or cheating. Right. But that was out of a place of concern. So I was okay with it.
Yeah,
for sure.
I was like, I appreciate, great friend. Thanks for telling me.
Yeah.
Well, which begs the question then, and I don't have the answer to it, but does it make sense to put it in your profile that we're in an ethically non-monogamous relationship? Because then if a friend does stumble across it, they can be like, oh, well, that's news to me, but I don't have to like go and worry about.
I thought about that, but I also wanted kind of the option of being able to explain it, I guess, on a case-by-case basis. And also, to me, there was a part of me that I also have a lot of family out here. And honestly, I was like, if any of my family finds out,
better they think she's cheating.
I could easily just be like, oh yeah, I've been catfished. Sorry, like that happened. Like that was, and and especially since all my friends all my really close friends and everything, and the people I know and are really close to me, they're all very like staunch Catholics. I went to Catholic school, so it's not something that I wanted out there so that they could screenshot and say, hey, look at them, they're like polyamorous or non-monogamous or whatever. And I don't know, I guess now that I've been caught, like I just deleted everything. I was like, there's no point in all this. It's just frustrating.
I've thought about it because like we had talked about, my initial thought process of not putting it on there was it's going to dissuade so many people that may be on the fence about it. So I was like, well, let's get to know each other and then tell them. But after having, at this point realized the response is pretty good. That I have enough, there's enough people that I'll have some sort of conversation with that I'm sure I'm correct that some of those people may never have swiped. If they'll be off-putting because it's something they're not used to or never been exposed to before, and they're like, no. But I think there's enough people out there now that I've noticed that are okay with it or had been involved in it in the past. I've come across a lot of profiles of other women in relationships that it's on their profile, right? And those are the ones I actually prefer to try and meet and start a conversation with,
because you're in a similar situation.
And, they get
Everyone gets it. Yeah,
it's easy. There's no misunderstandings of what this is and isn't.
Yeah, and I didn't have the answer. I wasn't accusing you. I was just curious, like if it would have made sense, right? And even as Phil's saying, like you message with, let's say you message 20 women, and 10 of them are not interested at all, but the other 10 might have swiped right or whatever direction you swipe anyway, right? And you saved yourself the time. I don't know. I don't have an answer.
Yeah,
I've not
that's what. Because that's what I try to avoid in the just like being so
that's
upfront.
What I think the both of us within like two messages or, hey, we should go out. Like, hey, yeah, but let me tell you this first. And it's pretty much right off the bat. And for the most part, it's worked out well.
Because almost for the same reason of, like you mentioned, of putting it on your profile. It's like, I don't want to waste their time and I don't want to waste my time.
Exactly.
We're both work enough and with family and our lives. Like, I don't have that much time to dedicate to this. So I'd rather get through that phase of like filtering it out of potential like people to meet than as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you've told a few close people, but in general, you're not out much about your relationship.
It's slowly growing. Like
it is.
We have some of our close family that we've told as well as just as friends.
My sister,
my brother.
His brother.
Definitely not my sister.
No.
it's always like a person on person. Like she became very religious, and I was like, I'd rather not.
Have
I don't
that
think she would agree or understand or. Yeah,
but I think for the most part, my close friends, like my best friends from high school, like they all know. My coworker / best friend, she knows, and my sister knows. But I it's such a big part of our lives now that I find myself just really wanting to just tell everybody, like I want to tell people that like I met this guy and I really like him and it's really exciting. And Phil met his wife and it's working out great between the four of us. It's just, that like new relationship. Like I want to tell everybody all the time. And it sucks when you can't. I told my friends recently how excited I was, and I was like, yeah, I met this guy and he's great. And Phil really likes his wife and it's working out so well. And my best friend was like, that's amazing. I'm super excited for you. And my other friends were like, that's weird. I don't get it. How are you not jealous? Like you guys, one of my friends was like, you guys are taking this way too far. Like, that, right? And I was kind of taken aback because I thought she was not judgmental about it, but she very much showed that she is. And it was kind of a letdown just to be like, I was really excited. And you kind of, I don't know, made me feel not weird about it, but you kind of let me down a bit because I was really excited to share this information with you.
Kind of squash your excitement.
Yeah. She
which is funny. She probably would have been the one I thought least about, like that, or excuse me, like the person I thought would be the least judgmental out of her friends.
Exactly. And the ones that I had told him that the single guy I'm dating, I told him like, yeah, like I really like him. And, I think you guys would like him a lot. And if you met him, like you guys would absolutely love him. And two of them were like, no, we know Phil too well and we don't want to disrespect him like that by meeting him. And I said, Phil's fine with it. Like, he's totally cool. And I want you to meet him. And they were like, no, don't want to meet him. Don't, like that's your kind of secret thing and keep it there. Mm-hmm. And that was this huge letdown because I kind of felt like, oh, I was excited to tell you this. And you really made me feel terrible. So now I'm like, I have to weigh like who I tell what. And
right. Like
and I don't have any.
There's sort of supportive, but to a point.
to a point. Yeah. It very much like a don't ask, don't tell. Like, we know you do this, but don't tell us about it anymore. We're uncomfortable, which I respect. So I've stopped telling them about it. But now I'm like, okay, well, when we hang out and they're like, well, how's your life going? That's a massive part of my life. You know, I really like these people and they're becoming super important to me. And I want to talk to you about it, but I can't. So I have to censor it, and I have to kind of narrow what is actually happening in my life to certain things because I can't tell them about the rest, which is frustrating.
And it sucks. I mean, it sucks.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. It puts you in really uncomfortable situations too, but you want to be open. I don't blame you. You want to be open and out about it, but sometimes it's just
not the time or the place. Yeah.
Well, hopefully given like over time, people will be more open to it. You never know. Some of your friends could come around.
Yeah. And we talked about this. I think this whole non-monogamy is, the more we're in it, the more I realize it's very much more commonplace than people talk about. Yes. Like the just variety of people that we've met, either just at like lifestyle parties and just talking to them, and of all different age groups, different demographics, people at work, and then talking about the people that they've met and realizing like the military is full of this, and like all these other each groups and demographics do this, that I'm like, I think it's just something people don't talk about more often than not. We just didn't know that maybe they're in some way or fashion, people that we run into do this and whatever that means to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Or at least are open to having the conversation in that relationship.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Were your friends, when you told them, Phil, were they supportive of it?
They were both shocked. So I had primed them obviously before I sat down, and I didn't want to have the full conversation about everything that had gone on until we kind of were face to face. But we talked about it for the whole night, and they were both kind of taken aback by it, and they were kind of pretty supportive, and we're like, yeah, that's awesome, that's so cool, as long as you guys are happy, that's great, like whatever makes you guys happy. I think one was like, that sounds like something I would so want, but I know myself and I would be completely jealous, and I don't think that's for me, or at least not right now, but that would be like a relationship goal kind of thing. But they've been great. I mean, we joke, we laugh about it. Whenever we get together, they usually ask, like, and I'll tell them about the people that I've met, and because they've been single their pretty much the entire time I know them, and they're nowhere near a long-term relationship or
ready to settle down at all,
getting settled down in any form or fashion. So it's kind of fun that for first time in our real friendship that I am one of the single guys. I've always been either the relationship guy or the married guy that's just kind of sitting in there while they're doing their single thing.
And now you're the guy that they could actually swipe right on your wife. But, but they probably shouldn't.
And now we have something to talk about.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, it's happy to hear that.
Yeah, that's super cool.
So you, Emma, had a question earlier, and I interrupted you rudely.
You did.
Rudely.
I was just we were talking about physical health, and I was going to ask more specifically about your sexual health and how you handle that with multiple partners.
Condoms.
Yeah. Carefully.
That and just birth control for me, because I don't know. Obviously, like that's always a risk that I mitigate as much as I can with just being up to date with birth control and going to the doctor, getting tested. But condoms like all the time. Yeah. So that's kind of how we pretty much, definitely with anyone new, we had a very short stint when we were with that one couple, when we were just the four of us. And no one else.
And nobody else.
And we trusted each other, and we had the conversation, and it was like, do we want to not use them? And we kind of went back and forth, and it kind of got to the point where we're like, okay, like we trust each other. like close and we kind of want to take that to the next level. So with them, we didn't use any, but we, like, none of us were seeing anybody else. It was literally just the four of us. But since then
that was, I think that was a fluke of just that specific relationship, not a
standard operating procedure.
Yeah.
Well, and you had the conversations, like that's what it all comes down to.
Yeah, there was the conversation.
And I was curious, so you both have sort of dabbled in the quote unquote singles dating world, right? And I guess, are you seeing the conversations around this being more prevalent than, like, being able to talk openly, like, here's when we got tested, here's how we protect ourselves, when were you tested, what, that type of stuff? Are you seeing that, like, those are pretty easy, normal conversations, or is it still kind of...
So when I'll go. And you were talking about specifically, like, when we're flying solo?
Yeah, like if you meet somebody off of Tinder or Bumble or whatever. It
is dependent on the person. I probably am more cavalier in that it's not a priority for me to ask. I think I probably am trusting, and, like, well, they would tell me if they had something, and we're going to use condoms anyway if it gets to that. So it's not, I don't ever make it a point necessarily to, like, ask them. But then there's other people where that conversation comes very quickly. And so for me, it's probably driven by them, as, like, if it's important to them. Otherwise, for me, I'm like, oh, we're already using protection.
I have the conversation.
You're better. You're a better man than me.
No, I always ask. I think, I don't know. In my experience, it's kind of been, just it's like, make sure, like, hey, I got tested, you're tested, cool, we're good. Still use condoms, like,
right.
Just
well, to be fair, I mean, you're both of you are assessing your risk tolerance in the situation and what you're okay with, what you're both okay with. Condoms don't necessarily protect you. They do not protect you from everything. But they do provide a lot of protection, so they're a good barrier. But the overall thing is you're both making decisions that are what you want, or you're okay with your risk tolerance, I guess.
Yeah. And I personally,
I was gonna say in that regard, like, I make my assessment off of, do I trust this person? And, like, I would never do anything physical with somebody I didn't trust. And if I thought that they would lie to me or not tell me something that important as to, like, do you have an STD, but you still want to currently sleep with me while you have one? Or would you even tell me if you like got tested and found that was how you found out? Although I've had, like, gone out on a few dates, like, and somewhat regularly, like, I still do my due diligence to get to know them on a more personal like level, to make sure that, like, this is somebody I would trust sleeping with, and that's not crazy or anything like so absurd. So I think that's how I make my choice and decision, unless I'll have the conversation if they brought it up, but it's never been my priority. I think prior to.
I still bring it up just because, I don't know, like, I'm dating a single guy, and I'm sure he's, like, out there probably having fun too. So it's like, we talk about it, and just make sure we're, like, on the same page and we're kind of good to go. So I don't know. I talk about it at least frequently, and same with new guys, like, just in case, you never know. I like to have that peace of mind of, you told me, and you proved that's the truth. So cool. Yeah. Moving on. And and I also, I don't know, I'm always sick, so I always go to the doctor, and every time I'm there, I'm just like, hey, by the way, can we do this? Because, and I even tell my doctor even asked me, she's like, why do you get it so often? Like, you're married? And I'm like, yeah, but my husband's not the only person I sleep with. So
that was my favorite conversation. The last time she wasn't feeling good and went to the emergency room, and the doctor was in there and asked that question. I was sitting right next to her. I had left work immediately because it just came on so suddenly. We were worried that something might be wrong, and she was completely fine, but minus the pain, but she was okay. But like the doctor asked her, like, how many, like, are you?
She's like, he's like, he's like, I have to ask this, but do you sleep with anyone other than your husband? Do you need to get tested? I was like, yes, I do. And he looked at me like, and I said it right in front of him.
I just sat there like on my phone. I kind of like looked up and went right back to my phone. At him like, normal question.
You should have thrown the chair across the room. Made a big scene about it.
And he also asked. So he asked that, and he was like, "Oh, okay," and kind of kept going. And then, like it was a questionnaire about like other things. And then he was like, "Okay, so I'm assuming just with men. I'm sorry, I have to ask." And I was like, "No, women too." And he just looked at me again, like completely shocked. And Phil's over here just like nonchalant, like, I'm just on Reddit. That poor doctor just walked out of there just confused.
I was just hoping she said no to the first question, so I didn't have to keep going down the list.
I know. Yeah. Now I have to ask you all these other questions.
I found that hilarious. Like in my head, I was just waiting for the doctor to leave so we could laugh about it.
Yeah. When he left and we laughed about it, we're like, that was weird.
Yeah. Well, that actually brings up another topic I wanted to ask about too. Have you? It sounds like you have explored your sexuality, as in, playing with, exploring relationships with people other than your, I guess maybe same-sex partners.
Same-sex.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, definitely. I think for me, I would say I'm bisexual. So that's kind of, I've explored that. When I have explored it, I've liked it. So it's definitely something that like I've lately kind of been seeking out again, because I'm like, oh, it's been a while since I've done that, and I really would like to, because I kind of miss it. And it really has been a while. I'm like, oh my God, I need to do this again, because I'm like kind of craving it. But yeah, I'm bisexual. So.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So on my part at least, and I think that's kind of also how this all started too, was because I was like, hey, let's have a threesome with my friend because I really want to. And yeah. And he's like, cool, let's have a threesome with your friend. I really want to.
Life's rough, huh?
Yeah.
That was a tough weekend.
Yeah.
How about any... We always like to ask often we ask if you've had any bloopers, like things that
only in the lifestyle or only in non-monogamy would this happen.
Would you have this happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so. I think when our original foursome friend couple that we were with, again, we both have kids. We live really close to each other, so it just we just had a lot of sleepovers because it just made sense. Put the kids to sleep so we can all hang out. And there was a few times, no, not few. There was like one time I just remember like it was like middle, like 2:00 in the morning, like been asleep for hours, and just they all decided to wake up at once. And obviously, like, we're a totally different part of the house, like. And they're very, very young. So it was just kind of a jump up, find clothes, figure it out. Like, geez, what's happening? And
baby monitor triage.
It really was. And then, yeah, so that happened. And the night was kind of over.
I would say the funniest in regards to them in that scenario, because we lived in the same neighborhood, is we lived right around the corner. And this is probably the only time where we would have like 2 a.m. I would just throw our son over my shoulder and walk back to our house after everything we were done for the night. And that was always unique.
I'm pretty sure that like we had neighbors that would probably see us leaving, you know, at 2 a.m. or them leaving here at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, what is going on over there? What is happening? Why do they leave each other's houses at a weird hour every night? But I mean, it was convenient because we could literally, like, I mean, door to door, 30 seconds at least. Like, we were right there.
Yeah.
So,
for me, my funniest blooper was the first time I ever met another spouse solo. We met on Reddit, and it was actually her husband had made the post. And so I started talking with him at first, and then started talking like to her, and we kind of hit it off. We met for drinks, and then we went back and we had fun. We slept together, and then parted ways. It was very nice. That was fun and unique and different for me. That like it's like, oh, that's when I realized I think I like other like wives better than just single women, because we had so much to talk about. She was super new. I was the first like encounter she'd ever had. So I kind of gave her my whole story and about how it's been for us. But then the next day, you know, in just waking up and sending a text and sending a message, I'm like, oh, last night was fun. Hope you had a good night. And she said the same thing. And then later on that day, I think I got a text from her husband, and he said, I know this might sound weird, but thanks for fucking my wife. And I just laughed because like, that is the weirdest fucking text you would ever get. No other scenario does some guy thank you for sleeping with his wife.
Right.
I think it's like a hot potato now. You're obligated to send that text.
Yeah.
Right.
I probably should, yeah.
You probably should. Thanks for that. Yeah.
I laughed pretty good about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those are
probably the best ones.
Our bloopers.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate it, and we appreciate you two coming on and sharing the story with us. I know it sounds like off to a rocky start, which is not uncommon, but we're happy to hear that you've sort of persevered and you found your way, and it seems to be all smooth sailing.
Yeah, it's going well.
It is, I'm sure.
Yeah. Lots of changes, and
I was going to say,
I know it is exciting.
Talk to you guys again in a few months or next year. We'll probably be in a very different place, I feel like, than
we are now. You never know.
Seems to be how this goes.
It's ever changing, but it's fun.
Well,
it's exciting.
We'll put it on the calendar, and it's a date.
There you go. 365 days from now.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, we look forward to it. And thank you again, and have a wonderful evening.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You as well. Take care.
And we're back.
Are you 33 yet?
Almost tomorrow. But we hope that everyone...
It would be crazy if somebody listened to this starting at like 11:30, and then by the time they finished, it was your birthday, and you actually turned 33 during the episode.
Oh, why would that be so crazy?
I think.
Okay, you're right. That would be wild.
Anyway.
I love you.
Yeah. Clearly. Well, thank you to Claire and Phil for coming on the show, for sharing your story, and
we hope everyone had fun listening to this one on Christmas with family.
Or Hanukkah. Also with family.
Exactly.
Or just Emma's birthday with family.
All of this time with family. You are very sweet. You keep wishing me birthday wishes over and over and over.
I got to get them all in.
Next week. Sorry.
I was going to say one thing. They mentioned a couple of dating websites during this episode. One of them was Cassidy. We haven't said it in a while, so maybe you're new. Maybe this is your first time ever listening, and you're like, what the fuck just happened to me? But anyway, we do offer, if you want to use our links on our website to help us out. It also helps you out with Cassidy. You get 6 months of free trial to check that out and see if you like it. So go do that if you're interested in meeting other sexy people like us.
Wow, what happened to your voice there?
Hi.
Okay, yes, go check out Cassidy. And next week, actually January 1st, 2020.
So I guess that's next year.
It is next year and next week. What do we got?
Dedeker.
Did you almost forget?
No, I was waiting for you to say it. We've got Dedeker from the Multi-Amory podcast coming by to drop some awesome knowledge and her story on us, pretty much start to finish, soup to nuts, as they say here on the podcast.
Oh my gosh. Yep. We're super excited for that. Hope everyone enjoyed this episode, and thanks for listening.
Right. Go put a shirt on. We got to go to breakfast.
Yeah, let's go.